Have you had moments like that in your life? Because, I mean, you tell me, man, it's like, comedy's subjective. Once you got into this and really found who you were on stage, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like it happened for you pretty early, yeah? I feel like you've been Anthony Jeselnik, and your style, your cadence, your delivery has been, you locked in on that pretty early.
Yeah, it took me like a year, maybe a little over a year to figure out dark jokes, and the persona just kind of formed around that.
Wow.
And it was just...
So you wrote dark jokes first, and then...
I was absurd jokes. At first I was I took a class where they talk about your life, and I'm 22. I'm my life's not interesting. I can't tell anyone how to vote. I can't tell people this different stuff, and no one wants to hear about my life. I'm sick of telling the same story over and over again. And I love Jack Candy's Deep Thoughts.
Yeah. Oh,
so I would
obsessed.
I would read them and write my own versions, and they were kind of absurd and silly.
What a great exercise.
Yeah. And then one day I wrote a dark one with a dark twist. And
remember what it was?
Yes. God, my girlfriend loves to eat chocolate. She's always eating chocolate, and she likes to joke she's a chocolate addiction. She'll be like, haha, keep away from those Hershey's bars, and it's really annoying. So one day I put her in the car, and I drove her downtown, and I pointed out a crack addict. And I said, you see that, honey? Why can't you be that skinny? And the open mic audience.
Wow.
It was just all open mic comics waiting for their turn, just went, oh. They didn't laugh, they just went, oh. And I was like, that's it. Short, dark, don't be too silly. But get in there, and that is what I want.
Holy shit. That was at what age?
23, 24.
Wow, so a couple years in.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What sort of weight lift off your shoulders is that to go, I know, now it's just about, and you already know how to write the joke? I mean, that's a fucking great joke.
Even telling the story now, I can picture myself driving home in the car from Jennifer's Coffee in Studio City, the open mic I was at on a Saturday night, and just being fired up. So pumped.
Dude, it's like you saw, it's like you got you found the treasure before you had the treasure map.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good analogy?
Not really.
All right.
We'll
edit this out. But I think that there's, wow, that's fucking, yeah, because I mean, that's the name of the game, right? Is being on stage, getting reps, writing to try to find your point of view and who you are on stage, right? And you got it that quick. That's dope, and I feel like very rare.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was searching for it so hard. I wasn't I'm going to put my time in. I was like, how can I make this time as short as possible? Not out of laziness, but out of I just want to
make your time on stage.
Not time, just time in general. Start at 22, you're not going to be good until you're 30. Let's see if I can cut that down to 24.
Wow,
you know, where they don't know any better. I'm going to pretend I'm a comedy genius, and I'm going to do every open mic I can. I'm going to write more than other people to try to cut that time down. So when I found that shortcut, I was like, this is it.
The confidence and the swagger that you possess on stage, likable, rubs some people the wrong way, right?
Sure.
You know that going in, but it's also how you look, how you sound, right?
But I'd rub people the wrong way without that swagger or confidence. As soon as they saw me on stage at 22, 23, they did not like me. Maybe they weren't booing, but they were just oh, this fucking guy. Because every comic looked like an uglier version of me. You know, so it's the whole lineup is just that. I'm like, okay, let's be a villain. Being a villain is fun.
Fuck yeah,
it's
dude.
fun. That I was like, oh, this is I've hacked something, and people would be like, you shouldn't be so mean. And I was like, wait, I understand what you're saying. I'm not going to be in a Disney movie, but I don't want that. I don't care.
Do you think they're and they're also having a harder edge to your style. You can't also be you've got there's an affable quality to you on the exterior to where it's you're not up there and you smile from time to time, which I think helps, at least from an audience viewing standpoint. If you're up there looking I don't know, Joaquin Phoenix with a full beard and a black coat, and you're being then maybe it's you still have to be somewhat likable on stage, right? Mm-hmm. That's crazy that you calculated all that. That's very fascinating to me to know this is how I'm going to deliver jokes. So that's my next question. Your cadence. Again, even talking about trying to slow down, I from the get-go when I saw you on stage, and even to this day, just have a lot. It's not my style, but I have a lot of admiration for people that take their time like that, because I just don't do it, and I don't think I'm capable of doing it. There's been sets where I've had I've been losing my voice, or I've been, and it's made me sit on the stool more or less and really take my time. And I have a couple buddies be like, "That was the best I've ever seen you." And then that makes me go, fuck, and then I'm whatever. But did you make it a choice to go, all right, now that I've got the, the joke format more or less, or knowing what my beats are going to be, like the time I want to spend on stage, and the style I want to be up there to deliver? Did you make a conscious choice to go? I'm always going to try to go slower. Like, did somebody tell you that? Were you going faster and then decided, or did the joke style kind of force you to kind of take your time?
It was really the best way to deliver that joke and to have the audience on my side. I like playing with the silence, and when the audience is hanging on your every word, I'm trying to get them to go right so I can go left. I want to lead them down the wrong path and then switch it up. The talking that way really helped. And people were like, you talk so slow. It's like, yeah, that's commanding a crowd.
Fuck yeah, I know.
I can stop talking and they're all just like, it's dead silent.
It's crazy.
That's
it's a superpower.
If a joke bombs and they're still silent, like, okay, it's when they start talking that you're fucked. And people would say you talk like Christopher Walken. And I loved Christopher Walken. I still do. But I thought it was a fun way to talk. And he just sounded interesting when he did it. And I thought that was why I talked that way, because you could hide the punchline better. If your cadence was a little off. But then I found out a couple of years ago, my dad gets that. People are like, you talk like Christopher Walken. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I get that too. And I'm like, oh, is it a family thing?
Holy shit.
It's not like a Pittsburgh thing. I think it might just be genetic. I don't know.
And you always been comfy in the silence? Because that's the trickiest part, I feel like, for any young comic. And it just,
I mean, timing is like a natural thing. Like, you just know when to start talking again, when to deliver the punchline. I don't know how you would even describe it to someone of how it works, but it just always kind of worked for me.
So you start writing on Fallon. You come out here from after college, yeah?
Yeah.
You partied. You're like, fuck, now I got to
I didn't have money to party. I was like, let's try to find a job. Could not. I was working like retail, and I was working at a bookstore, and I was thinking about stand-up comedy. And there was a book by Greg Dean. It was like there were like 5 books about stand-up or how to be a stand-up, and I picked the thinnest one. And I took that home and read it, and I was like, okay, here's joke structure, take the mic out, whatever. And at the end of the book, it was like, this guy teaches a class in Santa Monica. So I just started taking the course. And I didn't tell my friends or anything for like a month, and then was like, guys, I have to tell you something. Like, I'm taking a stand-up class. And they were all like, yeah, you'll be great at that. I was like, oh, okay. I thought this was like embarrassing.
Whoa.
And then just started getting into it from there.
I'm still laughing at how fun that was. Hey guys, Adam Ray here for the About Last Night podcast. Hope you enjoyed that little ALN highlight, that little freebie tidbit. If you want to see more highlights, clips, animations, and episodes, click right there. Click right there and get all the free ALN goodies your heart can muster. And of course, subscribe to the show by clicking the ALN logo right there. Do that. It's easy. See you next time. Peace.